And the reason I bring up giants in the Bible is because Samson fell into lust. David committed adultery. Paul was a murderer. Raise your hand if you've killed someone. And it's not to compare, it's to show you that these people were human. That you don't have to set yourself to such a high standard of perfection, because it's not perfection what he's looking for. The title of my message today is Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. We are standing on the shoulders of giants. Is there anyone that can tell me what that means or who said it? Anybody? A little history lesson.
Somebody on my shoulders.
Does anyone know what that means, or does anyone know who said that famous quote? Anybody? Anybody with a raise of hands? Okay, awesome, perfect. I get to give you guys a little history lesson. When we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, it's something that's said a lot in science, in math, in studies, and in different things. The person who said this was a famous person by the name of Sir Isaac Newton. Sir Isaac Newton, one of the greatest mathematical minds, scientists, theologians, one of the most amazing minds for creating certain theories that we use in science and every day. And Sir Isaac Newton said this because when he was saying this, he was talking about, when he says that we're standing on the shoulders of giants, he's saying that our ideas, the things he creates, the amazing things that he's done, are not just because of him, but because of others that have came before him. So when we talk about standing on the shoulders of giants, what I'm saying is that we are a product, or we are an outcome of those who came before us. And what's so beautiful about Sir Isaac Newton saying this is that it would have been so easy for him to say, no, I'm the one that discovered gravity. I'm the one that discovered the theory of relativity. I'm the one that did this. But he's actually saying, no, I am a genius and I am smart, but that's thanks to those who came before me. That's thanks to those who paved the way, theories before me, people who did work, people who put in the work before me, people who did the things before me. And I love this quote because I love to tie it to our faith. And two things I want you to get out of this message, or two things I want you to understand when I'm done preaching, is one, we are not the first and we're not the last. And two, when I'm speaking of giants, let's learn from the giants, but don't compare yourself. I'm going to go more into that now. My first point is remembering the cloud of witnesses. Remembering the cloud of witnesses. I want to go to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. If we can go to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. And I'll just read it for you guys. And I want to break down this verse a lot because it's a very profound verse. It has a lot of ideas that I'm going to be speaking about, and I think it's so beautifully said. Hebrews 12, 1 to 2. Hebrews 12, 1 to 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw everything off that hinders, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Let me read that again, because I want to break down the verse. Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders. Let us run with perseverance the race that is marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. My first point, remembering the cloud of witnesses. If we look in the Bible, there are so many giants in the Bible. So many historical, biblical giants in the Bible to learn from and to read about. Who can name me one giant in the Bible that you love to read about? One giant in the Bible. Gideon, perfect. Another one. Anybody? Moses, another one. So, anybody? David, perfect example. I love the example of David. Paul is an amazing example. David and Paul are actually two, and I'm glad you said that. I promise you, they're not paid actors in the crowd. They just said that themselves. But I love those two that you said, because David and Paul are giants in the Bible, and they did amazing things. But one thing you have to understand is that Paul and David specifically were two giants in the Bible, but they were not perfect. And that's one point I want you guys to understand today. The goal is never perfection. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to persevere. It's not about perfection. It will never be about perfection. It's about perseverance. You want to know something interesting about the Bible that I've heard? One time I was talking to someone who's actually this weekend in All Your Heart, the patience of my brother was tested, and shout out to my brother, because someone came up to him and started saying, the way you understand Jesus, you don't get it, la 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 la, and Josh had to be there like, okay, who? Josh had to show love to someone that was kind of attacking him in the way he understood things. And I one time remember a very, not serious, but it was a discussion with one of my friends in high school, and they told me, if the Bible, if seeking God is so great and whatever, then how come everyone in the Bible has also sinned? How come everyone in the Bible has also failed? And I want you to imagine the Bible. Imagine if every story in the Bible, they took out the failure of every character in the Bible. Imagine you read the story of David and he didn't commit adultery. Imagine you read the story of Samson and he didn't fall into lust. Imagine you read the story of Paul and you didn't know that he was a murderer of Christians. Because that's who the people we're talking about is. That's the giants of Christianity. David committed adultery. He didn't just commit adultery, he sent that woman's husband to the front lines of war so he could be killed. Paul, one of the greatest apostles in the Bible, was a murderer of Christians. What happens if we took those parts out of the Bible? Why are those parts in the Bible? Why are those parts of their stories? Wouldn't it be so much easier to say, oh, they lived a faithful life, the whole life, they were perfect, and in the end they died and they met Jesus? Like Enoch. But why are those parts in the Bible? It's to show us that they're human. It's to show us that they're human. It's for us to understand that we also have struggles, we also fall, we also fail. But in their perseverance is where they met the glory. In their perseverance is where God used them. It wasn't because they were perfect. They weren't chosen. Paul was not chosen because he was perfect, I'm telling you now. Paul was chosen in the midst of his murder. Paul was on his way. It literally says in the Bible that Paul was on his way to kill more Christians. Paul was on his way to kill more Christians. And God knows that. That's what's beautiful about God. God knows that in the future I'm going to fail. God knows that in the future you're going to sin. God knows that there's going to be times where you fail and you fall, but he still chooses you. Our problem, or the thing we get so stuck on, is that we think we have to be perfect. We think we have to be ready. We think that, I'm going to start serving, or I'm going to get more into God when I get to this point in my life, or when I get to this point in my life. If the giants we read about today in the Bible would have waited until they were ready, we would have never heard about them. If the giants in the Bible would have waited until they were ready, they would have died before that moment. Because for most of us, we will never be ready in our own human understanding. And I love this verse, and the reason why I read this verse is because of that last part is so beautiful to me. Let us run the race with perseverance. He's telling us, run it with perseverance. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. God isn't looking for perfect people. He makes them perfect. God isn't waiting for you to be perfect. Through your faith, He will make you perfect. He will make you a giant just like those who came before us. And just in our lives, I want you to think about in your life as well. Because there's a lot of examples here that I know a lot of the people's parents in here. I know a lot of the people's families. I want you to think of giants in your life. Not just biblical giants. I'm not just talking about history. I'm not just talking about stories in the Bible, but giants in your own life. Because for us, a lot of us, faith wasn't something that just appeared. Faith wasn't something that came. It was prayer of a grandmother. It was the lessons of a mother. It was the prayers of father. It was a pastor who put his eyes on you and cared about you and prayed for you. Think about the giants in your life. And if you're telling me right now, if one person is telling me, but Tim, I have no giants. There's no giants that I can think about. I'm a new Christian. I don't really have anyone in my family that's Christian. I don't have anybody that has paved the way for me. There's no clear path for me to go to like you. You know, I was blessed enough to have a father who was a pastor. I was blessed enough that my grandparents were fervent Christians in the Lord. But some here can hear this and say, but Tim, I have no giants. And I think instead of something that makes you sad, or instead of something that thought would make you depressed or sad, I think that thought is a reason to rejoice. And you know why I say this? Because if you've had no giants before you, that means you can be the first giant in a generation. That means you can be the beginning of a story in your lineage. That means you could be the first ancestor for when your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren talk about their Christianity and talk about Jesus, you were the starting point. You were the first step. You were the person that took the first step. So if you're telling me right now, if you're thinking, I have no giants, I have no examples, one, we have the Bible, and two, like it says in this verse, because the giants paved the way, but the verse is clearly telling us, where should we fix our eyes? Where do we fix our eyes? On Jesus. On Jesus. Some of us have been graced with giants in our lives. I know I always bring this up, but Oscar's an amazing point, because Hermana Marta to me is also a giant that was in my life. Is someone that I saw fight for us, struggle, pray, and believe that one day Oscar would be here serving and being in church. But that doesn't mean because you don't have that, you can't also be a giant for future generations. And number two, one thing I want to say is, like I started, giants are not perfect, but they were faithful. Giants are not perfect, but they were faithful. There's an amazing point. There's an amazing saying that says, everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its life thinking it's stupid. Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's stupid. One thing I want you guys to understand is when I talk about giants in the Bible and when I talk about reading their stories, when I say that we have to read their stories, I'm talking about learning from their stories. One thing I never want you to do as Christians, if I could teach anything, if you can understand anything, or if you can leave with any lesson today, don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself to Christians here in church. Don't compare yourself to pastors. Don't compare yourselves to people in the Bible. Do not compare yourselves to anyone. Your walk with God, your version of Christianity, your Christianity is going to be different than the person beside you. And why do I say the quote about telling a fish to climb a tree? Max and Daphne have two daughters. There's Taylor and there's Jordana. Jordana's 6 years old and Taylor is 14. Max and Daphne as parents cannot expect the same things from Jordana that they expect from Taylor. A 14-year-old is not going to have the same ability, the same cognitive function, the same intelligence as a 6-year-old. And in the same way that they cannot expect the same two things from two different age groups, Jordana also shouldn't compare herself to her sister. If Jordana compares herself to her 14-year-old sister, someone who has lived through life more, someone who is older than her, she's going to live her whole life thinking she's not enough. Jordana is 6 years old. If you see her, yesterday we were having practice with the youth band, and she's the most curious little girl in the world. She's touching everything. She's looking at everything. She's grabbing Tony's equipment and throwing it everywhere. She's grabbing the dog toys and throwing them everywhere because she's a child. That's what she's meant to do. Some of us are children in our Christianity. You're curious. You want to understand. You want to learn. You want to do everything. But you're not going to compare yourself with a 40-year-old. You're not going to compare yourself with someone who has been through Christianity for 40 or 50 years. Do not compare. What we need to do is learn. What we need to do is emulate. What we need to do is take the good, take the things that you love, the things that are great about the heroes of God, the things that were great about these people. But then people tell me, but no, Tim, you don't understand. You don't know my sin. You're a goody two-shoes. You've been a pastor's son your whole life. You don't understand what I've done. You don't know how filthy my resume is. You don't know what I think about at night. You don't know what this and this and that. And the reason I bring up giants in the Bible is because Samson fell into lust. David committed adultery. Paul was a murderer. Raise your hand if you've killed someone. And it's not to compare, it's to show you that these people were human. That you don't have to set yourself to such a high standard of perfection, because it's not perfection what he's looking for, it's perseverance. It's staying in the fight even when it gets tough. It's saying, I know I'm imperfect. I know I'm imperfect, but I'm ready. I'm ready. Because if we wait until we're ready I promise you, if we wait until we are ready in our own human understanding, I hope this doesn't hit too hard and I hope this isn't too mean, but if we wait until we're ready, most of us are going to be in the grave before then. Most of us are going to have grandchildren before then. Most of us are going to be too old to even walk or speak before then. If we wait until we're ready, we will never be ready. That's why I love when this verse says, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Because it's not about already being perfect, but it's about walking in God that makes us perfect. He is the perfection. He is the goal to strive for. We don't strive for perfection. We strive for the one that makes us perfect. We don't strive for good works and good acts, but we strive to serve God completely. And that's what these people understood. Yes, they failed. Yes, they were human. Yes, they failed to sin. Yes, they fell to temptations. But they persevered. They persevered. In the end, what happened with Samson? After getting his hair cut, after receiving some of the most horrible punishments, God gave him one more opportunity. God gave him one more just boost of strength because he persevered throughout the adversity. It doesn't, just because we fall into the sin, just because we fall into the temptation, it does not mean we will never be perfect. It does not mean we will never be great. Because greatness is something that isn't innately given. Greatness isn't something that we're born with in Christianity. It's something that we're given by God. It's something that we're given by God. And my third point, because if we're understanding this and we've had giants in our lives and we know that these people have prayed for us, that these people have cared for us. There you go, perfect example, Jordana. That's a child. She's a child, and that's what I mean. We can't judge the difference of someone if Josh was doing that at 32 years old, I would have a problem. But she's a child, and I understand that. Thank you for the imagery, Jordana. But the third point I want to talk about is building on legacy. Because it's not enough to just learn. It's not enough to just understand, okay, Hermana Marta prayed for Oscar. Hermana Marta paved the way for Oscar. Pastor Moses paved the way. Your grandparents, your mothers, your fathers, the pastors before you paved the way. It's not enough to just understand that. The next step is building. The next step is continuing the legacy that they've set before us. And Paul, in the 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 10 to 11, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, 10 to 11, I'm not going to read it, I just want to paraphrase it. But he talks about that he laid the foundation so others could build upon it. Today we are the builders. The church was not passed on to be preserved. The gospel was not passed on to be maintained or to be kept for us. It was meant to be shared. It was meant to be taught. It was meant to be continued on in our generations to come. Faith, church, such a cliche thing, but I love it. Faith isn't a museum. It's not a museum. It's not so you walk in and you come and say, wow, look at Tim, look at Pastor Moses, look at the worship team. It's not a museum for people to come and see. It's a hospital to come and be fixed. It's a hospital to come and be saved. That's what it's meant to be. If you're sitting in the pews, constantly eating the blessing, but doing nothing with it, we're failing. We're doing wrong. It's a waste. Thank you, Raul. It's a waste. We have to understand that the people that paved the way before us is not just so we can walk in our own walk and not worry about the neighbor beside us, not worry about the brother or sister beside us, not worry about our enemy, but they paved the way so we can too walk and take others with us. So we can too walk and pave the way with others, our future generations, our future children, whoever it may be. If your parents, I promise you, sometimes it's a hard concept to understand, but I will always say it because I was younger. I was in an age of that too. But if your parents are asking you to come to church, if your parents are urging you to come to church, it's because they want the best for you. It's not to be annoying. It's not to be controlling. It's because they are praying day in and day out for your future, for your lives. And they understand that the best place that you can be is with God. The best place you can be is in a walk with Christianity. So if you are taught these things, if you know you have giants in your life, also be a giant in the lives of others. Also be someone who perseveres when others are falling. And that's what's beautiful about this right here. That's what's beautiful about church. That's what's beautiful about this group here, is that you are not alone. You are not alone. And that's another point. Even Jesus, even the most perfect character in the Bible, even the most blemishless person who didn't sin, who sacrificed his life, he didn't go through life alone. He had 12 disciples. Moses had Aaron. These giants of the Bible are not alone, and you aren't either. And that's why it's important to not compare. That's why it's important to not think that my Christianity has to look like Tim's Christianity, that Sammy's Christianity has to look like Serge's Christianity, that Josiah's has to look like George's. That's not the case. We're all in different levels of our lives to help each other. If I am lacking in faith, I know I can run to Oscar and speak to Oscar. If Max is lacking in faith, he can go to Rogelio. If Rogelio is lacking in faith, he can talk to Raul. That's why we're here. That's why I want to build this community. I want to build the culture of not being afraid to speak to your neighbor, not being afraid to get out of the comfort zone of, I don't know what it is, if it's ego, if it's shyness, if it's coolness, or whatever it is. But I want us to be a culture that talks to each other, that shares with each other, that walks the race together, that doesn't think, oh, I'm alone and I've done it alone. Yo soy el más macho, I'm the biggest, I'm the strongest. No, we are here to help each other. Without judgment. Because like I said, it doesn't matter. I'm someone who's grown in the church and seen so many problems. I remember being a kid, and I'm a nosy kid. I love el chisme. I've always been like that since I was a kid. It's something that I'm asking God to work in me. But I remember being a kid, and my dad would have meetings with people. People would go to my dad's office, and I would, stand right outside the door. I would stand right outside the door, waiting to hear what they were talking about. And and I'm telling you that there is nothing. And that's the problem, that when we compare ourselves or we think that it has to be perfect, comparison is the killer of progress. Comparison is a killer of conviction. It is. Because when we compare ourselves to others and we realize we don't meet that standard, our self-esteem goes down. Our emotions control our spirituality and they tell us, no, you're not good enough. You are not good enough. But I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you today that it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what you're doing even now. You are meant for greatness. You are meant for glory. God loves you regardless. Jesus loves you. But one mistake we mustn't do when I talk about giants, one mistake we mustn't do when we talk about giants and people that have paved the way, we must not fix our eyes on them. And that's an important point. The verse says, fix our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. Because what happens many times as Christians, we make our pastor God. We make our dad God. We made those who have come before us God, and that's a mistake I don't want you to make. When I'm saying learn from those from the Bible, when I'm saying learn from giants, learn from them, but do not worship them. Learn from them, but do not make them your idol. Do not make them your God. It says run the race with perseverance. The race, the line, the track is made out for us. It's already there from people before us, but it's saying run it with perseverance, but keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. Because what is the problem with man? Just like I said before, giants are imperfect. Giants are imperfect. And if we worship them and we fix our eyes on them, eventually, sooner or later, I'm sorry to say this, but they're going to fail. They're going to fail. How many pastors do you know about? And it's not to call them out, it's not to make them look bad, but giants like Carl Lentz, giants like great pastors of Hillsong, of different churches, that sadly fell into fornication, adultery. They committed sins beyond things that you would imagine them to do. And what happens? All the people that had their eyes fixed on those people, where are they now? Where are they now? Because it's not about worshiping the person that paved the way. It's not about worshiping Pastor Moses. It's not about thinking that Pastor Moses is so perfect, he can do no wrong. He's human. He's my father. He may be the closest thing to it, and I can attest to that, but he's not perfect. Sooner or later, we all fail. We all fall short of the glory of God. It's not about maintaining our eyes on the people that came before us. It's about learning from them. It's about taking the perseverance that they did. It's about taking their faith and saying, that's the kind of faith that I want. Because it's not about having faith in others. Some of us, the mistake we do, and this is going to sound so funny, but we put our faith in faith. And I know that sounds so weird, but we put our faith in the idea of faith rather than our faith completely and totally in Jesus. Listen, It doesn't matter. It does not matter how good the person preaches. It doesn't matter how much theology they know. And I'm going to tell you right now, me being here, there's some of you that probably know the Bible better than me. There's probably some of you that even pray more than me, or it could be whatever. It could be anything. But the difference is, and I used to tell this myself all the time, that I'm not ready. A lot of these people know my past. A lot of these people know me for who I am. But the difference is that when I went to Guatemala, and this is one thing that I love when people say this. People tell me, wow, Tim, you came back with so much fire. You came back with so much fire. And I appreciate that you guys say that, I really do, but I just don't like it. Because me having fire indicates that I have something you don't, and I don't. I don't. You're not lacking what I have. I don't have something greater than you guys. I'm not someone superior to you guys. It's not like I came back from Guatemala with this gift that you guys don't have. The difference is I told God I'm ready. The difference is I told Jesus I'm going to do whatever it takes to just serve you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to obey you. I'm not better than you for being up here. I'm not someone that has done more than you guys. I haven't prayed harder than you guys. I didn't repent harder than you. We all have access to the same blood and the same mercy. We all have access to the same Jesus. We all have access to the same Father. The difference is the step we have to take is actually on our own. We have to make the choice to take that first step. And let me tell you, a lot of times, and I say this so many times, but I'm going to repeat it over and over again. Many of us say, I'm so far from God. Many of us say, you don't understand. I'm so far. I haven't prayed. I haven't talked to God. I haven't read my Bible. I'm going to tell you something. Oftentimes, and most times, when we feel we are furthest from God, when we feel we are the furthest we could ever be from Christianity, we're steps away from glory. When we feel we are the furthest from God, when we feel we're so lost and gone, you're actually inches away from your purpose. You're actually inches away from God's plan. It's those moments that the enemy wants you to think that I'm so far from God that it doesn't matter what I do, I can't come back. And God is literally 2 feet in front of you telling you, I'm right here. I'm right here. We just have to take that first step. We just have to understand. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you haven't had giants before in your life. Because the moment you say you're ready, the moment you tell God, use me, the moment you tell God, I'm tired of living how I was, I'm tired of my own strength, I'm tired of doing things on my own, I want to put my trust completely in you, that is the moment you become a giant for your generations. And that's what we have to do. That's what I want KOG Connect, that's what I want KOG to be. I want us to be giants for the future generation. Because I'm telling you, this generation, people our age, people younger, the future for me is so uncertain. We're in a generation where medication is used for mental illnesses now more than ever. Depression is higher, anxiety is higher. We have suicide rates. One thing I learned in Guatemala actually was that now more than ever, it was like 62 or 63% of girls under 19 are pregnant before marriage. It's huge. It's a huge thing. It's a huge, huge thing. And it's all over the world. It isn't just in Canada, it isn't just in Guatemala, it isn't just in poor countries, it's it's everywhere. And if those people are seeing, if those people don't have giants in their lives, if those people can't look back and say, what example do I have? That's why we're necessary. That's why you are necessary. That's why you're necessary in your workplaces. That's why you're necessary in your schools. That's why you're necessary in everywhere you go. Because in the middle of the darkness, you can be light. You can be a giant of light for future generations. The only difference is you have to say, I'm ready. You have to ask God to make you that giant. And the last point, and the main point that I want to talk about is the last part of this verse, which I want to read again because it's such a profound point to me. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. The pioneer and perfecter of faith. You're not going to be the first nor the last. You're not going to be the first Christian to believe in God. You're not going to be the first Christian to struggle. You're not the first person that's fallen to sin. You're not the first person that has faced adversity. You're not the first person that has it hard in life. You're not the first person that has cried alone at night in the darkness. You're not the first person that has lost a parent. You're not the first person that has lost a family member. You're not the first person that has gone through something so tough you think your world is ending. You're not the first person. But we have access. We have access to the pioneer. We have access to the first perfect person. We have access to the person that died for your sins. We have access to that blood. We have access to it. One thing I want you to do this week, one thing I challenge you, I ask you to do this week, something that I've been learning myself, something that I've been trying to do every single day, and I'm telling you, for me it's helped. For me it has helped so much. And every day, let the first part of your day, let the beginning of your day, let from when you wake up, the first thing, don't let it not be checking your phone, let it not be checking social media, let it not be going on the computer. Even if it's 2 or 3 minutes, even if it's 30 seconds, that's all I'm asking. Just thank God. Put the day in God's hands. Put your mind, your thoughts, everything in God's hands. Thank God, 1, for allowing you to wake up, and 2, ask God to guide you that day. Ask God that, what is my purpose? What is the reason? Why am I waking up? Why are you giving me? Why am I here? And then read the Bible. One thing I want you guys to do, and something that was even hard for me, if I'm practicing what I'm preaching, I have to practice what I'm preaching. If I would have told you to read the Bible maybe 2-3 years ago, I'd be a big liar. But I'm starting to read it more and more now, and I'm starting to understand, like I said before, the reason for these stories, the reason for these things, this manual that God gave us, because there were people that have walked the same race as we have. There are people that have already gone through their journey. There are people that have already gone through every struggle, every hardship, every sin, every failure. And we read it not to compare. We read it not to judge, but we read it to help us understand that no matter what point you are in your Christianity, no matter what point you are in your walk with God, no matter where you are in your academic life, in your scholarly life, in your work life, in your family life, no matter where you are, perfection is one step away. And it's not because I was born perfect. It's not because I've done enough to be perfect. It'll never be about good works. You can never say, oh, I was an ujier for 3 years. Oh, I'm in the worship team. I did this, but God, I gave to charity. But God, I did all your heart. But God, I did this, I did this, I did this. God isn't looking for a list of your good works. He's not looking for a task list of, oh yes, I did this. Oh, I checked off all 10 commandments, so now I'm a perfect Christian. He's not looking for that. He's looking for you to persevere through the hard times. He's looking for you to persevere through times where it's actually tough, because it's easy to serve God in the good times. It's easy to follow Jesus when everything's going right. It's easy to thank God when everything is going right. But when things are going wrong, are we persevering? When things are going wrong in our lives, when there's an inconvenience at work, when there's an inconvenience at school, when there's something that goes wrong in our daily lives, are we still thanking God for those moments? Are we still thanking God for the hardships and the struggles? And one person that I want to point out as I close is Job. One of the most amazing examples of this in the Bible. An amazing giant. To me, lately in my life, especially these past 2-3 years, where God has really been punching me in the chest and molding me and breaking me down to my very last molecule, I look at the life of Job. Because sometimes I think, woe is me, I have it so, things are so hard, this and that and this. It would be so easy to curse God. It would be so easy to blame God and say, God, if you're so perfect, why are we still struggling? God, if you're so perfect, why our house is $2 million? God, if you're so perfect, why can we barely afford a mortgage? God, if you're so perfect, why? And I'm constantly going to be saying why. But there's someone in the Bible named Job who went through the hardest test ever, lost his wife, lost his children, lost his riches, his livestock, everything, every single thing. And when people told him, curse your God and die, when people told him, this is because you've done wrong, this is because this is because that, what did Job do? What did Job do? He fixed his eyes on the perfecter. He fixed his eyes on the pioneer of faith. And he knew that no matter what comes at him, no matter what he goes through, it's not perfection, it's perseverance. Let this week, thank you, yes. Let this week be a week of perseverance. Stop comparing yourself to others. Stop thinking about the sins you've done. Stop blaming yourself. Stop self-pitying. Stop with the low self-esteem. But persevere. If you feel like it's been a hard week, if you feel depressed, if you feel whatever, the best thing you can do is pray. The best thing you can do is pray. And like I said, if you feel these things, if you're going through hardships, if you're sad, if you're depressed, if whatever it is, you're not alone. You are not alone. You've come to KOG Connect. You've come to the right place. If not myself, because I'm telling you guys, I'm giving you access to myself. I know that that's not a huge, great thing. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing ever, but I'm willing to put myself there for you guys. If you want just an ear, someone to listen, someone that can listen to you, that's not going to judge you, that is not going to say, oh, this or that, or tell anyone else, you've come to the right place. If you can, find people in this group. Talk to people in this group. Don't make it about cliques or about, I don't like to, no, none of that. I'm tired of that in church culture. I'm tired of little groups and cliques that exclude and do this and that. We're all brothers and sisters, and we have to live with each other without judgment. We have to talk to each other without judgment, because I don't know what Alejandro went through this week. I don't know what Eliam went through this week, but I went through things this week. I don't know what Max went through this week. I don't know what Kendra's going through this week, but we're all at different points in our lives. Where if I'm going through something that Rogelio has already gone through, that's what's beautiful about it. If I'm going through things and another person you guys can talk to has been through everything is my brother Raul here. If I'm going through something, I know I can go to Raul. And Raul will almost laugh at me. Because in my understanding, when I'm going through it, it seems like my whole world. It seems like my world is ending. But Raul can almost laugh and say, I've been there. I've been there. I've been there. That's what this is for. That's what this group is for. Is that when someone is down, I can lend a hand and pull them up. When someone is down, I can be the reason they stand back up. That's what's beautiful about KOG Connect. And that's the culture I want to instill. But remember, do not focus or fix your eyes on myself, on my Father, on the worship band, on nothing else but the one person, the one perfect person, Jesus Christ. I want to close our eyes and stand to our feet.